You feel the weight of it all, the tasks, the expectations, the people who depend on you. But no one ever sees the toll it takes. You're not just tired, you're unraveling, and no one is asking why. You show up for the meetings, the calls, the deadlines. You say yes to everything. But the silence inside grows louder, louder, louder. The noise of your own unspoken needs is louder than the noise of the world. You carry the emotional weight of others like a second skin. You forget your own. You're a walking responsibility, and you're starting to believe that being responsible is the only way to be whole. It's not that you're bad at setting boundaries, it's that you've never been taught how to say no. You were raised to be the caretaker, the helper, the one who never says no. It's in your bones, your blood, your breath. You grew up in a family where responsibility was a virtue, and vulnerability was a weakness. You learned early that your worth was tied to what you could give, not to what you could receive. That's how it started. You don't trust that others will show up for you. You've learned that people are unreliable, so you stay ahead of every possible problem, every possible need. You're the one who always has to be first. But here's the thing, responsibility is not a burden you were meant to carry alone. It's not a sign of strength. It's a pattern, a loop, a wound that needs to be seen and named and healed. You're not broken. You're just carrying a wound that was never acknowledged. That wound is the belief that you're only valuable when you're doing, giving, fixing, not when you're being, resting, receiving. This is not a flaw. It's a sign that you were raised to believe your worth was tied to what you could do for others. That's not a bad thing. It's a truth you need to face and then reframe. This is not a weakness. It's a sign that you've been taught that being responsible is the only way to be seen. That's not a truth. It's a story that needs to be rewritten. This is not a failure. It's a sign that you've been holding a story that's no longer serving you. You were never meant to carry the world on your back. It's a truth that needs to be let go of and then replaced. This is not a flaw. It's a sign that you've been holding on to something that's not true. You were never meant to be the one who always shows up. You were meant to be the one who shows up for yourself. This is not a weakness. It's a sign that you've been raised in a system that taught you that vulnerability is the enemy. That's not a truth. It's a wound that needs to be seen and healed. This is not a failure. It's a sign that you've been living in a story that's no longer serving you. You were never meant to be the one who always fixes everything. You were meant to be the one who lets others fix themselves. You don't need to be responsible for everything. You can begin with one small step, not saying yes to everything, not carrying the weight of the world. You can start with saying no and watching what happens next. You don't need to be the one who always shows up. You can begin with one small step, allowing yourself to rest, to be still, to be seen. You can start with listening to your own needs, even when it feels strange. You don't need to be the one who always gives. You can begin with one small step, giving yourself the same kindness you give to others. You can start with saying no and finding the courage to be present for yourself. That is not a sign of weakness. That is a sign of maturity. That is the beginning of a new story, one where you are not the one who always shows up, but the one who allows others to show up for you. That is not a failure. That is the beginning of healing. That is the moment when you start to see your own worth, not in what you give, but in what you receive. That is the moment when you begin to rest. What would it feel like if you let go of the need to be responsible for everything? What would it feel like to say no just once and let someone else show up for you? What would it feel like to be seen, not for what you do, but for who you are?